Okay. We're gonna allow those next few people to come in slowly, but thank you all for joining us so much. I am very excited about this conversation. I hope you all are as well. I think we're going to learn a lot. We're going to have a very interesting conversation today. I want to introduce Cindy. I'm very honored to welcome Cindy, the interim CEO of On the Margins, just a truly visionary organization rooted in justice, joy, and collective care, and one of my favorite clients. She's got nearly 20 years experience in social work and community healing. Cindy leads with a deep commitment to liberation and love. And today we'll be exploring on the margins uses of tools like Blooming Health to bridge those gaps across generations, connecting youth, parents, and elders in powerful, affirming ways. And at Blooming Health, we're so proud to support on the margins with our notification system. Thank you again, Cindy, so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Sade. I appreciate you and the Blooming Health team for inviting me into the space. I'm excited for today's conversation.
Absolutely. We're having just a touch of technical difficulties. I just want to make sure I get that covered.
No worries. It's par for the course in a virtual world. I don't think a webinar is complete if there aren't technical difficulties.
Yes, and I think we got that one out of the way. Glad we were able to do that. Awesome. Let's just get started, shall we? I really do want to start with a deeper introduction to On the Margins. So, with, of course, your own words, can you tell us a little bit more about On the Margins and the communities that you serve?
Sure. Well, On the Margins, Family Therapy and Psychological Services, also known as On the Margins, was founded in 2019 by Dr. Lorena Dominguez, a clinical psychologist. And our work, the best way to understand us is that our work, we work at the intersection of anti-racism, trauma responsive care, and feminist theory. And what that means is even our name, On the Margins, that comes from the works of Fannie Lou Hamer, Bell Hooks, Kimberly Crenshaw's. The idea being that this world, structure systems were designed with certain people's vision in mind, and that there are people on the margins of society that are often ignored in care and service delivery. And I think we're living in a moment where we're experiencing that right now, right? About what's happening at a national level, a global level, and then within our communities. So our work centers BIPOC individuals. We work with LGBTQIA2 plus folks. We do a lot of work with uh, people that are undocumented, documented, seeking asylum, and refugees. So again, folks on the margins of society.
Well, yeah, that definitely gives a powerful glimpse into the heart of your work. Thank you for grounding us in that. And your organization is rooted in abolition of and trauma responses. How do these values shape the way you approach your programs and community care?
Well, I'm a big fan of defining terms, and trauma is one of those terms that gets sort of it's in the ether, and it might mean different things to different people. But we get rooted in the definition that trauma is a response to a deeply distressing or disturbing event that overwhelms our abilities to cope. And what I love about that definition that it's universal, that I
Mm,
think just about everyone has experienced a traumatic event. Now, that doesn't mean that you are traumatized per se, but that means that uh, there's a shared experience around trauma or a shared understanding around trauma. And so there's a universality to it, right? That these services are for everyone. So the reach has to be expansive. And at its core, abolition feminism is about creating a world where all individuals can live without the threat of violence, exploitation, and marginalization. And so this involves looking at existing power structures, but also imagining alternative entities, right? So
mm.
it's about breaking down. It's also about building up. If we're getting rid of systems, what are we building up? How are we co-creating a world that honors everyone's lived experiences and that centers folks who were not historically centered? So all of this framework, this theory permeates all of our programming. So we think about this when we're designing youth programs, and I know we're going to talk about one of them in a bit, but when we're looking
Mm.
at youth programs, is how are we thinking holistically about not just in the youth that are in the programs, but also whole family care? How are we inviting parents, caregivers into the process? We think about this in our delivery of therapy services. One of the offerings that we have is mental health therapy. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. As I mentioned, the founder is a clinical psychologist, and we have a team of therapists. So we think about what is a trauma responsive approach to the care of services from the moment people call and seek services to how we communicate with them for appointment reminders to how we onboard them. What does the assessment and intake process look like in a way that, can we do that in a way that reduces re-traumatization? If you think about how we navigate care, oftentimes those systems are re-traumatizing
Mm,
unconventionally,
mhm.
right? So we have to be really, really intentional in how we deliver care by holding these frameworks of abolition feminism, trauma responsive care. It means that everything has meaning, everything matters, and intentionality is at the core of everything that we do.
Yeah, what a great response. And honestly, I think that's a really great segue into the next question, this intentionality. But also just speaking a little bit more about validity and creating those spaces for the future and what that pathway can really look like. I wonder, like the idea of being a tool for others, whether as a mentor, a resource, or an advocate, is central to your work. What does that mean to you personally and professionally?
Mm. So, as a social worker in school, we're trained in systems thinking and systems theory. So, I look at the world in terms of micro, meso, macro, all entry points. So, micro being that one on one work, meso, community organization, and then macro is big, global policy. And again, we think about that with our services, is we believe that there are many ways to go about engaging in justice based work. And what it boils down to me is how can we do the best work we can do in our corner of the world?
Mm,
Because what's happening, it's so overwhelming. I literally met with a client this week, a therapy client, and she was so overwhelmed by what's happening globally.
yeah.
Um, what's happening with the detention of immigrants, what's happening in LA. Well, now it's a bigger movement. I'm on the East Coast. I know there were some actions in Philadelphia protesting against ICE and their actions. What's happening in Gaza and the Freedom Flotilla. All of that has impact. All of that has impact, and it can feel incredibly overwhelming. And it can lead to us questioning, like, what can I do in this moment of time? It feels like too much. I can't do it all. And so I
Mm,
always get rooted in what can I do today? What can I do in my corner in the world? And how can I be a vessel toward transformation, change from which we cannot return? How can, what is being called of us, of me as interim CEO in this moment in time, of all the years to step into an interim role? 2025 is what it is for me. But I think for all of us, that might be, my North Star is always what is being called of me and of us in this moment in time, and what can I do within my corner of the world to have impact in this moment.
yeah, that's so amazing. That's something I feel like is consuming a lot of us, many of us of all generations. I feel like I'm having these conversations with parents, grandparents, friends, children in school. It really does impact us all, consume us all. But I wonder, just speaking a little bit more onto impact, the SARS focuses on identity development and integration healing. And I wonder a little bit about that healing, that transformation. So, what kinds of transformations have you seen in families that go through this program together? So, maybe speak a little bit more as to the program.
Yeah, SET is a great program. It's one of our 4 youth-centered programs. And SED is our intergenerational program in the sense that, so the other 3 programs focus specifically with high school age youth. SED actually involves parents as participants or caregivers. Uh, so it can be a parent, it could be a cousin, it could be a trusted friend, basically any trusted adult, family of choice is what we think of. And we try to take really expansive um, lenses when it comes to definitions around mental health and family and all that. So, SER, the acronym stands for Sanando y Empoderando Relaciones, healing and empowering relationships. And this was this program came from, well, youth feedback that we were getting from other from participants in our other youth programs, and a desire for going deeper with their families, but not really knowing how to do that. And many of the clients, the students with whom we work are Latine, and we know that there's a lot of stigma still around mental health within the Latina community, many communities, but we're speaking about the Latina community. And also a lot of legitimate fear about service delivery, lack of culturally competent services. So there's a reason why that stigma exists beyond just personal reticence. It's also historically, again, services, mental health services have had certain people in mind and have not been focused on other groups. So SID is an 8-week program that is a combination of didactic training. So we teach people, we ground people in the definition of what is trauma so that we have shared language. And then there is a series of conversations, experiential workshops. And the goal is to enhance the relationships between the student, the young person, and whoever they brought in. They brought that person in for a reason, to try to deepen that relationship. And there is a great success story that our programs manager, Griselda, who does a beautiful job leading the group, likes to share. There was a young person that when he first showed up with his mom, he was very terse with her, just very impatient, talked to her in a way that I think might be deemed as not very respectful in the beginning.
Mm.
First session, second session. And as they learned more about the impacts of trauma, intergenerational trauma, and how it was showing up in their relational dynamic, the dynamic started to change, and his response to his mother was different, to the point where I think it was the last session we end with a celebration. We always like to bring food and music and just a lot of joy. And he got up to get himself a plate, and he asked his mother if she wanted something as well. And so the shift and caregiving and caretaking that he was offering at the 8-week mark versus the first week mark was transformational. And then after that the program had ended, about a month or so later, the person that had referred them, it was a medical provider at a local federally qualified health clinic, said, "Hey, by the way, we heard that the family is doing really well, and they are so happy with the program, and they are feeling the impact of having experienced that program within their family dynamic." And that's one story. We were lucky enough to get that kind of feedback. So much of what we do, the impact is not known.
Sure.
It's planting seeds, but that stands out as just one example of how bringing families together, creating a container where health and healing can happen, can have long-term effects. If you think about the trajectory of that, that was 3 years ago now. The trajectory of that relationship over the course of a lifetime is immeasurable, and it's really exciting for us to be part of people's journeys in that way. But we're always very honored when people allow us to support their process.
What an amazing story to take away from that as well. Yeah, a lot of what we do in this industry, maybe that feedback isn't available, but I think that's also a really good segue into our next question. But I do want to stick with this for just a second here. This resonates with me so much. I think I would have really appreciated having something like this, but you eliminate an obstacle, right, of that communication, and being able to provide that space for that communication is such an amazing tool. And I really think that that speaks to empowerment, creating that empowerment in the youth and creating empowerment of knowledge of information. Let's pivot the conversation just a touch. We often think about tech tools as a neutral, right? But they often can either empower or exclude. I don't think we think about that very much. So, how has using messaging with Blooming Health helped you to build deeper connections and more equitable access? I'm sorry.
Hmm. Oh, that's a great question. I think we live in a very interconnected world, and we have to think about the various forms in which people receive information. And we have found that we can sometimes make assumptions about how people engage with tech, how people communicate. So one of the things that we do with all of our clients, whether it's our individual therapy clients or people in our programs, we ask about preferred methods of communication. And by and large, it's text and email. No one says, please call me. Like no one has time for a phone call.
Practice.
Right, right. Facts, right. No, none of it. It's text or email. And Blooming Health makes it so easy for us to be able to program people in, send these automatic responses, which frees up our time. So, to your point of equity, time is a valuable resource. I think the two most resources that we have are our words and our time. And so, for us, an organization that's focused on doing justice based work, but really for any organization in this moment in time is so precious. And anything that frees up our ability to redirect our efforts into uh, more of the meat of the work is an equity issue. And we're so grateful for Blooming Health to that, you've been an amazing partner, super responsive whenever we need support, and then everything that it does, all the tools that it offers. But what it allows is for us to offer our services with a wider reach for folks through this shared platform. And so it expands our ability to increase access to our services, which are by and large free to clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a little biased here because you're my client, and I am I'm so lucky to have this client, one of my favorite clients for sure to work with. But I am wondering if we can share some of those impacts of how you've used Blooming Health a little bit, so everyone here can get a little bit more of an experience of what kind of messaging you're sending.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I'm biased too because Sadie and I, she's our direct contact. So like I have nothing but praise for you and your work, and then everyone else that I meet from the team is always really great, Marina and Eric, and it's been great. So we use Blooming Health with all of our programs. So I mentioned the four youth programs. Our largest one is called Dale. It's a youth organizer program. It's our largest and our longest running program. Everything is an acronym for us. And so it stands for Development, Advocacy, Leadership, and Education. And we're training a pipeline of community youth organizers. So it's a large group. We have to communicate with depending on the year, the cohort year, anywhere between 65 to 100 people. And Blooming Health allows us to do that in bulk. Nicole, who's our marketing and community outreach coordinator, is able to just schedule these messages out, and it's just super easy because otherwise it would take us hours. I mean, just for that one program. We also use it with our seniors in Cloverdale, California, and in northern Sonoma County. There is a group of seniors that have been engaging in advocacy and policy work, and they were meeting monthly, and Blooming Health allowed us to send messaging, send reminders about community gatherings through phone and text. We also use it internally for our team.
Mhm.
We work with, so we have a core team staff of 10, and then we have a pretty robust collection of independent contractors and consultants. And we send them reminders about submitting your time, sort of the logistics, the unsexy part of running a business. Like, hey, please submit your timesheets by this date. A reminder we're closed. We're celebrating Juneteenth. Please don't schedule client, things like that. So we use it in many different ways, not just for programs and to reach our clients, but also internally for the staff to send reminders. And it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. That's that cross-departmental kind of just using across the board. So you're speaking to those third parties, you're speaking internally, and you're speaking to those end users and their parents. So really getting across the board so many people. And I want to guess if we had to guess per week or per day, whatever makes the most sense for you. But how much time are you really saving by sending these messages and not needing to take those individual calls and review individual analytics?
Depending on the time of year, because we often have multiple programs running simultaneously,
Right.
I would say at least 5 hours a week I mean, just Dale alone, those 100 people with whom we have to communicate, and we have to send several messages throughout the month because there's a project-based element of it. I would say on the low end, it's at least 5 hours a week, which 5 hours a week, that's more than half a day. I could do so much with 5 hours in a week. And so that's, again, going back to the equitable access piece, that allows us to redirect our attention to actually facilitating programming or seeing one-on-one clients or doing some policy advocacy work. So,
Mhm.
found time is found time. So
Yeah, absolutely. And that half day given back to you throughout the week, I know I can use that. Just looking at my calendar's crazy this week. I can use 6 hours. But I do also want to. We were talking about the variations of communications, and we were talking about the youth program and their parents, and really speaking with families, and just linking that to this regarding working with and caring for maybe older adults. Are there any differences you and we should be aware of either process or approach?
I think I go back to the assumptions piece. And we learned this as an organization of making assumptions of how people are in relationship with tech, sort of tech literacy. And
Right.
it's a bias that we have. We might be doing just as they were, but we get it wrong sometimes too. And what we learned is that our seniors are actually still very connected. My mom has um, she's on, Facebook. She
Mhm,
had TikTok. My brother set her up with a smartphone. She's 78. And my brother set her up with a smartphone. And she's like, I just saw her a couple of weeks ago. She was on her
mhm,
doing this. And that was something I learned that about my own mother. And I think
mhm.
that, we make these assumptions about what people can and cannot do.
Right.
And some of our seniors are, I think, more on their phones than some of our young folks. Like some of our students are like, I'm really, really, really intentional about, my social media use. I've never heard that from one of the seniors that is engaging in tech, and probably for different reasons, right? It's connection to the outside world. It can help with isolation. There are just so many ways in which we can leverage tech. But checking those assumptions, I think, is always something. And then ask again, like,
Yeah.
what is your preferred method of communication? How often do you engage um, with online messaging, or sort of just really asking those questions is the best way to know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think most, if I would say most of the older adults are primarily in the phone calls kind of category, but there are so many that kind of will do both. They'll do phone calls and they'll do text messages. It's really just based off of what they feel the most comfortable with. And what we should be doing is just asking those questions in advance. I've definitely have seen that with my clients. About 70% of my clients are older adults. So I
Mm.
would say that that adjustment process isn't as large as we have found. Like gap isn't as large as we found. Just giving them that opportunity, I think, is pretty immediate. We can see that impact very quickly. And I do want to go into for organizations that are kind of hesitant of using technology. What advice would you give them about working with Blooming Health?
Again, go to your demographic, go to your clients, your customers, your consumers, ask them. um, let's honor self-determination and agency. I think that's the best way for us to fully be informed about what the need is. If you are not sure about the benefit of leveraging tech platforms, if you're not sure if your audience is a right fit, ask them. They'll let you know. We're so grateful for our community because they're always so open in their communication, and they'll let us know. And actually, with Dale in particular, we what we heard from them is like, you're sending us too many messages. Give us one or
Mhm.
two a week, like basically one or two a month, because we were sending them a lot. They said, yeah, we got it. We just need one. And so then we were able to go in and change the schedule in Blooming Health uh, and adjust that. And then we asked them, how's this feeling? And said, it's great. So constant checking in. Again, the community will let you know. People are very clear about what works for them and what doesn't. At least that's been something that we have learned from our community. But what I would say to any organizations that are hesitant, go to your community, ask them what they would like.
Absolutely. And technology is all about adjustments and learning and adjusting as you learn more from your members, from your users. I think that's a good portion of it, learning what makes the most sense for your organization, what kind of notifications make the most sense, and speaking with your customer success manager about how to strategize a little bit better, getting those response rates higher, getting that feedback from your users so then you can find out more about them, demographic information, whatever really information you're really looking to get. I want to end this off because we've got 5 more minutes here with a very interesting question. What is the biggest lesson your community has taught you?
Mm, Flexibility and fluidity. I think that uh, I I live in gray, and we live in gray, uh, and so there's so much that is coming at us at any given time, so much that our communities are experiencing, that we might have a scaffold of where we want to go, where our programs are, what our vision is as an organization. And with everything that's shifting so quickly, day to day, moment to moment, we have to stay nimble, and we have to stay flexible about how we embark with the work, how we are in relationship with people. um, our community, love the communities with whom we work. We love our community partners, and we we just have to be flexible in this moment in time. I think it requires us to be flexible and fluid so that we can adjust to whatever the needs are at any given moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Adjustment. And you know what? That's so beautiful. It's definitely a very meaningful reminder to carry forward in this kind of work. I do want to offer maybe 5 minutes for questions if anybody would like to ask a question. We've got the chat room being monitored. So if you'd like to add in some questions in the chat, I'll just give us a couple of minutes there. But this does kind of conclude our webinar for the day. However, for all of you that are interested in Blooming Health as a resource for your teams, or to suggest this tool to those in the industry, I'll be showcasing a QR code here that you can scan to book times to chat with our amazing team. Thank you all again for joining. I just want to see if we got any questions. Lots of thank yous, which is great.
No, thank you all for being here.
Mhm.
I don't know where people are. Is this national? Are people coming from different time zones?
Oh, I am curious about that. I wonder if Eric or Marina knows if there's any international folks, but I really, really hope so.
We do have people from all across the US. I know California, Midwest, and East Coast.
Oh,
Nice
amazing.
representation. And yes, this is systems theory being powerful.
And
100%.
yes, Adrian, this is being recorded, so you can return to this. Amazing. Just one more second. Let's see if we get anything in that chat space. Chicago, we've got Chicago in the house. Love that. Love to speak to some people from Chicago, honestly. I don't think I have one Chicago client. Amazing. Okay. Lots of thank yous. New York is in the house. Amazing. All right. Well, we're going to end this off. Thank you so much. This is being recorded. Lots of thank yous coming in. Love it. This is the end of our webinar. If you'd like to return to this, we're going to send off the link for you all to be able to view it from the start. Thank you again and have a lovely day. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Sade. Thank you, Blooming Health. Thanks to all.